returning guest.
I love it. Thank you for having me back, guys.
Brett, dude, it's our pleasure.
Dude, it's good to have you, my friend.
So, okay, so I heard about this story and my mind was blown, but then I remembered we're in California.
Yeah.
And without getting into California politics too much, let's just catch everyone up on the story. And like Brett, Jeff, fill in the gaps. So, Tenant from Hell is the title of this news story.
To put it lightly.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Is there something worse than hell?
So this lady rents a luxury Airbnb in LA and I think pays for a few weeks maybe. She rents it out.
It's like a 6-month rental.
And was she paying the whole time?
She was paying the whole time, and then she asked for a few extra weeks. And when the argument was that she made that when it was pulled off of Airbnb's website and she had these few extra weeks, then it was no longer, then the property fell under LA's tenant protection laws.
Because there was no occupancy license and there was an illegal shower or something like that. That was her argument. Yeah. And so she ends up staying 570 days rent free
in a luxury
Airbnb. Like, I was talking to my wife about this. Like, I mean, where is like just common sense? Like, she can't do that.
Or just the audacity of people that
they
think
I know.
I'm entitled to this.
Yeah.
And that's, we have so many different tangents we can go down. The entitlement,
okay,
because of an unpermitted shower. It's like, my God.
I mean, first question, Brett, is just how does this happen legally? I don't understand.
Yeah, so I think we have a few factors that are making this be able to occur legally. One, we're in California. Two, we're in Los Angeles.
Yeah, the strongest tenant rights. And
just generally speaking, isn't it true that in California, it seems like the rights more often than not benefit the tenant, not the landlord. And I guess we should say there are landlords who have done horrible things, right?
That is correct. And I think a lot of these, when we see rules like this that come into play, they're created because of something that's occurred in the past. Yeah. Some litigation or some, court case that, hey, this seems like a good idea. Let's create this blanket cause that, affects all, which, as we know, in real estate, there's no one size fits all and a multitude of reasons. But I think the way this occurred, California, then we're in Los Angeles, then a lot of times Airbnb can be a sticky situation as opposed to a long-term rental situation. I myself, as a broker, only focus on long-term residential and commercial property management. The reason I haven't gotten into the Airbnb short-term rental is there are a lot more jurisdictions, not only from the rental websites, Airbnb, can we say these things?
Yeah.
ShareBnB, whatever. And though there are stipulations within those specific conduits for renting, but then it's just astounding to me then how these things can occur that under, I'm losing my train of thought now. After ShareBnB, you have their different rules, but then within the local jurisdictions, there's different rules, and sometimes those, clash or they coincide to make it even double protected for the tenants. So, and then it just goes back to what I look at is the vetting of the tenants. When a long-term residential, I really focus on we can mitigate a lot of these problems if we find the right person from the get-go. But with the ShareBnB, they're only going to be there for a week or they're going to only be there for less than 30 days.
No interview process.
Yeah. And it's a lot of times we don't meet in person. That's something that, at my company, we really pride ourselves on. When we're showing these properties, we don't do open houses. We do private showings because, I'm showing you the property, but I'm really interviewing you.
Yeah.
Travis Avila shows up with this family.
Sketchy.
And,
Red flags.
No way.
Yeah, but it's
way.
like I look at the way in which people conduct themselves on the phone. Do they show up on time? Do they communicate effectively? Then when they're at the property, are they speaking to me or speaking to their spouse or their children in a kind way? Are they, I can see that's wrong. Like you get that vibe for people, whereas with these short-term rentals, you don't have that reassurance that this person is really going to respect your property. I think gone are the days where ShareBnB equals party house.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of people now, you're reviewed as a short-term guest, as is the host. That's two-way street. They're both reviewed, and you can make or break. You might not be able to rent something again if you trash a house, or vice versa. If a landlord doesn't uphold the standard at which they should be keeping this property, they might be flagged or taken down.
Right.
So I think there's a lot of things that potentially have caused this Miss Hishorn to be able to exploit. I can't say that's all the landlord to blame. I think a lot of this is we see these opportunistic professional tenants take advantage. They see a situation, they scout for these situations and say, this looks like something that could be good for me to take advantage of.
Well, it's kind of a perfect storm in the worst possible ways when you're saying like California law tends to favor tenants, which, whether that's good or bad, warranted or not, it just is the way it is. And then you have on top of that, compounding the problem, this like Airbnb short-term rental kind of regulations that kind of stack on top of that and just make it kind of a ball of yarn that's really difficult to untangle. And I heard that this lady, I don't know if she won, but she sued the landlord like $100,000 for
not emotional
for a
damages,
relocation fee.
Yeah,
a relocation fee. I
Yeah.
love that. What?
Yeah.
She's got some gumption here.
And it's,
Lots of gumption.
I agree. And there is these relocation laws when we look at recent things that have passed. For instance, AB 1482, the rent cap and just cause addendum laws for particularly the properties that fall under that. There's a just cause eviction, no fault just cause eviction. There is sometimes the 1 month's worth of relocation fees. If they've done nothing wrong and it's a just reason, for instance, there's a major rehab going on the property and the resident hasn't done anything wrong, but we're asking them to leave, they're entitled to those things.
Oh, really?
As opposed to a resident that is in breach of contract for non-payment of rent, that is a just cause at fault eviction. And then they are either entitled, if they've been there less than 365 days, they only entitled to a 30-day notice. If it's more than 365 days, it's 60-day notice. Yeah. But you don't have to give them the relocation fees. So there's lots of different criteria under. That's just one specific law that was passed in the last few years. That is something that's really important to residential property managers, whether it be short-term or long-term, more particularly long-term. But yeah, I agree. This relocation, the gumption or the audacity for them to claim that, I agree, is ludicrous.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to hear you talk about, this is obviously an extraordinary case.
Agreed.
And it's probably the exception, not the rule, but it does get the conversation going about these types of things. And I loved how you were talking about, that might be an extreme example, but there's landlords all over the place that can prevent things like this by doing things like, hiring a great property management company like yourselves to like vet tenants. What else can landlords do? Contracts and like, what other things would be helpful to mitigate these kinds of things?
Yeah, I agree. At the risk of self-promotion, but I agree. A property management company like Bey Property Solutions, or there are lots
TM.
of there are incorporated now. There are I think last time I was here I was a sole proprietor, and now
Look
we are
at
a
you,
corporation.
boss.
We're going up in the world.
Love it.
But a professional property management company, especially one that is held to the realtor code of ethics. I myself am a realtor, even though I don't sell real estate. I'll leave that to professionals such as the Landmark Group, because there's so many different intricacies. But we're held to this same standard code of ethics that people that sell real estate is. So that is one protection as a landlord when you're hiring someone. And then they're using the National Association or the CAR forms, California Association of Realtor Forms, which is the most protection for a landlord, but also the most protection for a tenant. There's lots of protection.
We like
for
to call it
both
fair.
parties. Yeah,
It's
exactly.
a very fair agreement.
Yeah.
On both sides.
Do you see that happening often where folks who have a rental and they don't hire a property manager are doing sort of like back of napkin agreements and not using these? And that just opens you up to a litigation.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is that when you hire a professional property manager, they have access to these industry standard agreements. Whereas if someone decides not to, as an investor myself, I understand a typical property management fee. It's typically off the gross amount of income. 8 to 10% is a standard, is what I've seen.
I think that's going to be a lawsuit by saying it's a standard now.
Yeah,
you can't say that
exactly.
anymore.
It is negotiable between both parties.
There you go. There you go.
0 to as much as you want.
to
Exactly.
X.
Yes, I agree. But in all fairness, that is very true. It's something that's is set between the landlord and the property management company. But if someone decides to not do that to avoid that X amount of management fee, and they decide to go to their family attorney to have them draw up an agreement, a lot of times, I think these, unless they're specifically a real estate attorney, they're just pulling, this is a 20-year-old contract I've used forever. It doesn't have these updated addendums and things that are going to be most protective for the landlord, but also for the resident. And I think that's super important to make sure that as a property management company or as a landlord, you're looking out not only for your best interests and to avoid potential litigation, but also to protect the residents. I think there is an obligation to protect all parties involved in the property management.
Yeah, I mean, Jeff, you've had rentals for a long time. Like, what are some lessons you've learned?
I mean, honestly, one of the lessons that's the hardest is like not to show too much mercy when people don't pay. It's kind of like it's like you've got a little grace. You as the landlord, you have a little bit of a, but the more I try to like help people and help them make it through it, the worse it just got for me.
I agree. I think a lot of times there's the showing that mercy is great, and I think we also have a similar faith background. I think I want to be merciful, but also I've seen when it comes to a business standpoint, these people like Miss Hishorn, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile.
I have
a
story that's worse than this one for someone that I know, and we'll not say any names, but it was also in Los Angeles. They had inherited, I think it was a fourplex from a past father, and they wanted to go sell it, and the tenants there were all kind of tenants from hell, and when they went to sell it, they wanted to basically evict everybody, clean up the property, and sell it like for much more than what it was worth, just with them being there and all the issues these tenants presented. When they were doing that, the tenants called the city and said, "Hey, there's all these issues with this property." The city basically like red tagged it in some sense, and the tenants were able to stay there, and then made the landlord bring all these things up to snuff like they wanted to, but meanwhile they couldn't get any extra rent. So like they're bringing these units way up into, and they couldn't get rid of anybody, and they can't. They like in LA, you can't terminate the contract.
And was this during the recent pandemic?
No. So in Los Angeles, if you're there, and I'm not a Los Angeles expert by any means, so I could be wrong here, but if you are there more than 6 months, not even a year, more than 6 months, you cannot evict them unless you are moving into the unit. Like that's the one, not death, not any other thing.
So that those local jurisdictions are superseding what's set by the state, with AB 1482. Yeah. That's even more strict, which, the more strict guidelines always trump.
And meanwhile, these guys wouldn't like let their contractors into the house to make the fixes, and then they're getting penalized and having to pay the city of Los Angeles for not being up to code and code compliant and having water heater bracing and stuff. And this thing's like an old building. They were like, "This is horrible."
So what do you do? I mean, you just said that you would not have so much mercy for people who don't pay, but then, I mean, we learned the same thing in business. So it's like hire slowly, fire quickly. I mean, it is good for everybody, even though it sounds harsh. Yeah. But in a tenant landlord relationship, what can you do? It seems such a crazy question.
What was really hard in the pandemic is all the property owner rights were taken away, and so that made it unbearable for many owners. I mean, it was just ridiculous. And if your tenants did not sign an affidavit saying, "Hey, we have lost our job and have suffered income loss," then the landlord could not go for assistance to recoup the missed pay. So if you had anybody that was unethical, which there was a ton of people that were just being unethical, who did it hurt? It hurt the landlord. Yeah. That was it.
And and that just kind of goes back. Again, at the risk of sounding too political, I think there's a lot of things that are coming down the pipeline that I think it's important that the National Association of Realtors and California Association of Realtors. There's a lot of power. And then Scott Hagwood, president-elect, was talking about that is there's an attack. President is that there's an attack on property rights, especially for the property owners. And I think it's important that we're being cognizant of these things that are coming down the pipeline. And
it's so good. Okay, so I want you to hit on, there's the eviction process, which we can talk about, but there's another process that you and I are discussing. There's a great way to have a win-win for both the tenant and for the landlord, which is not an eviction process.
Yeah, that's correct. So, legal disclaimer, I'm not an attorney. Please consult a professional attorney. However, when I was going through had some recent evictions, I'm proud to say at Bey Property Solutions, anybody that we've placed into our units, we've never had issues. But it's the inherited tenants when we've taken over properties, oftentimes explicit, this person is being a pain in the you-know-what. I need assistance getting them out so we can get a better tenant. Yeah. So those 2 times I've had that. One time this was a property in actually North County, Santa Barbara, and this person was non-payment of rent, historically late. I was hired to come on to essentially, hey, we need to either tell them to shape up or get them, ask them to leave. So we followed all the appropriate rules, 3-day notice to pay rent or quit. They didn't give us the back rent and the rent that was due right then. So we went forward with a real estate attorney professional. And they said, before we go to the unlawful detainer action, there is a document called a stipulation for entry of judgment. And what this is that you set forth some certain parameters, oftentimes in the benefit of the tenant. We understand, you're going to get X amount of free rent. Oftentimes, if somebody owes for January, February, and you're trying to issue this in March, you don't have to pay for January or February as long as you're out by February.
March 15th.
March 15th or January 28th. Follow these sets of rules. And if they adhere to all of these rules and they're out by the date that's set forth in this document, it's torn up and it's not filed with any local county. However, and the main thing is getting the tenants to sign it and seeing this is in your benefit. It's really going to help you. This isn't going to go on your credit. We can, wipe our hands clean. We can shake hands and leave from here. However, if you can get them to sign this and they don't adhere to these rules or regulations that are set forth in the stipulation for entry of judgment, it is filed with the county, depending on which county you're in, and a sheriff lockout can happen within 5 to 10 days.
No court, no dealing with all that. It's just done.
So it's a little bit of like it's a give and take. It's a negotiation, and you're giving a little bit on like, hey, we'll forego this rent, but we need X to happen. They agree to it, but then if that doesn't happen, then there can be enforcement.
Yeah, and so for instance, with this property that this had occurred, we were able to get the resident to sign it, and she adhered. Agreed and actually went through with the things that were set forth.
Oh, nice.
Didn't have to do the sheriff lockout. It was still difficult the day we showed up. Oh, I'm still moving things out. We gave a little bit of grace. I'll be back at 4 p.m. I need the keys then, which this person was, which was a great win-win. The house was trashed. We had to, renovate it, but now we've got a great resident in there, and the owner has possession of the property back. However, I'm currently undergoing another similar situation, inherited resident. Tried to get them to sign the stipulation for entry of judgment. It was even more favorable terms to this one I had. I think it was like 3.5 months rent-free, not going to be filed with it's not going to go in your credit report. They wouldn't sign it. They wouldn't respond to anything. So unfortunately, we did have to move forward with the unlawful detainer action. And then this one, there was just no contest. They didn't show up for court, none of that stuff. So in fact, I got off the sheriff this morning, and we're scheduled for a lockout on this coming Wednesday. So that we started this process. They were supposed to be out by October 31st, and here we are. December 20th is when we're actually able to get them out.
Man, wow!
But still, that was quick. I
really
I told the owners, I'm like, this is great, and I'm like, I told them, like, I know that this is it sounds ridiculous, but this could have been well into first quarter, second quarter of next year.
So what happens with like the tenant's property when you lock them out?
That's a great question. So in the past, when I say I haven't done this, is me as the broker, and I was technically the plaintiff in this unlawful detainer action. But when I was working for another property management company, you have to look at the local or county rules. If there is still property the resident says, I'm not abandoning this, I want to get back, you have to set forth rules that, hey, we're going to allow you to have supervised access to the property back at X amount of times, or, putting it into storage. It depends on which county you're in. You have to store it for certain days. I've seen you have to store it for 30 days, and if it's after 30 days, it can be sold or destroyed to recoup the costs. So what you do with the property depends. I hate that answer, but you can't just roll in with the trailer and start backing things up unless you've gotten explicit instructions. Hey, we're leaving. We don't want anything else.
I almost ended up with a Harley Davidson because it was sweet.
What a win!
It would have been a big win.
A non-running.
I did one last text
versus,
hey, this is the last day. It's what is that called? It's
drop dead date or whatever.
Yeah, there's a thing with the DMV. It's a trip. Like if someone leaves a car on your property, you can fill out this paperwork, and if it's there for a certain amount of time and they don't come get it, like it's yours.
Dang.
It's pretty trippy.
What a win.
What a win.
Let's find people's motorcycles.
Yeah, I've seen, the stipulation for entry of judgment is something that I'm a big proponent of, and I think, but you have to go through. I myself as a broker can't create that. It's stipulation for entry of judgment. I don't think if you've ever seen a judgment form, it is a form that it's a county form, and it's if they adhere to it, it's ripped up, but if they don't, it's filed with the court and it goes on their credit report. And just really, I feel some compassion for these people I'm going through this eviction for, but they've
blown you off.
Not made it easy on themselves. And I've really tried to be in they come over, we're trying our best, and I say, I understand, but I'm here to, as ludicrous as it sounds, like I want the best for you guys, and like help me help you, and they can't help themselves. So my fiduciary responsibility is to protect and enhance the property for the owner, and that's what I'm doing.
Let's turn the page and talk about how difficult it is for tenants to find property right now, and that this lady got a bad rap. I would say most people, 99% of tenants are amazing and pay their rent on time, and they mow the grass and take care of the property, and it's fantastic. But right now there's this huge shortage, so where are you seeing availability? Where are you seeing rentals coming from? Like what are you seeing in the market today? Because it just seems like so difficult for people to find anything.
Yeah, and on the first point, I agree. I think for every vacancy that I have and I get 10 qualified applicants, I can only rent to one of them. And I'll tell people, I'm like, we've got a large amount of applications. We process things as per fair housing, equally and fairly. And I tell people if we decide to go a different direction with another tenant and you weren't turned down for any reason, particularly like bankruptcy or credit or poor landlord recommendation from prior landlords, that's something we can talk about. I can put your application towards something for the next 4 months. So I'll tell people, like, I've got your file and I can, put it towards something in the future. But so I agree. Well, inventory, very similar in the resale market, is limited right now. There's far more demand than there is supply. Where are these vacancies coming from? I'm seeing on a lot of my properties legal ADUs, or depends on where you are in at least San Luis Obispo County, these tiny homes on wheels. As of last time I checked, about a year ago, you can have tiny homes on wheels in city of San Luis Obispo, not county of San Luis Obispo.
True.
But a lot of these accessory dwelling units, or ADUs, are where owners are able to be owner occupied of the main residence, and then they can rent that out.
I am surprised that it's only allowed, I believe so far, in SLO.
I know. It's myself, I live in county of San Luis Obispo.
Yeah, me too.
And I, was researching that there's a great place here on the Central Coast that produce these tiny homes.
Yeah.
I manage a property that has one of them, and it's great. If I was a bachelor, I would live there. It's a great spot.
Yeah.
But I couldn't do it in county, or I live in Napomo. So then now we are going to be doing a junior ADU garage conversion. I've got my plans all drawn up, submitting them to the county. But that's what I've seen is a lot of.
So the other kind of random place where I've seen people live, and it was not designed to be this, but the what is it called? the trailers for like the dunes and stuff. Those campsites.
Recreational vehicle.
Vehicle campsites.
Mm-hmm.
People are buying, like fifth wheel type of things, parking them there and living there.
Just renting long term, you mean?
Long term, yeah.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have experienced that myself. I've seen, some modular homes, that were previously trailers, and then they are affixed to the land to become real property. But yeah, I've heard of that. I've never experienced it
just
myself.
interesting.
Yeah, wherever they can get it, wherever they can get 4 walls and a roof over their head. Yeah,
ADUs and stuff like that's kind of interesting.
Well, I mean, there's so many parallels between the resale market and the rental market, and we have the same problems. Obviously, you alluded to it, and so inventory is tough. And one of the questions everyone asks us is just about inventory, and do you see it picking up? And I don't. I mean, it took us a decade to get into this position that we're in now, and I think it's going to take years to get out of it, and so much of it is going to require building. But, similarly in the rental market, it's like, I would really encourage people to think about junior ADUs and ADUs on the property, because it creates inventory. It seems to be a real win-win. I mean, I don't know, it costs money to do it, but if you do it, it's like, and you just created a unit of residence for somebody to live in, your family or otherwise. You're getting income. It's like it's providing shelter for somebody.
Yeah, and I haven't gone through the entire process with the county yet, but from what I understand, they're really trying to expedite these junior ADUs and ADUs so that way they can help mitigate some of this housing crisis. I know new construction, there's still a lot of hoops to jump through.
Yeah, it takes a long time.
Yeah, family members that got 10 acres of property and are just struggling, they approve the plans, and then the county's asking for minor use permits. And it's extremely frustrating to see when, this goes back to property owner rights. It's like people have large amounts of property and they're not able to do things because of jurisdictions set forth. But the ADUs and junior ADUs, I think the county is good with them, and it's, they're trying to help expedite that.
What are you seeing, Brett, in terms of again, another parallel with the resale market is, everyone's like, oh my gosh, surely home prices are going to go down, and they didn't. And they're likely we're going to see more, single digit, but appreciation in 2024. What's the rental market looking like?
It's still astounding to me a lot of times when I'll see that what's the market value. For instance, I have a twin home, so these homes that share a garage wall but separate and different titles for each side of the home, and 2-bedroom, 2-bath in Pismo Heights is upwards of $3,000 a month.
Whoa. Yeah.
And it's just astounding to me. And then also in San Luis Obispo proper, I have a few properties that are student housing, or not, explicitly for it, but they're close to campus, so they lend themselves to it.
Attracts them.
And a lot of times that goes per room, because we'll get, a 5-bedroom house. There'll be 5 students, and per room I'm seeing, like $1,600 per room. It's absolutely crazy.
That's insane.
That's crazy. Also,
we just saw a 4-plex go for sale. It was listed at 145. We had a client put in an offer at 1.6. Yeah. And then someone bid it up to 1.8.
Wow.
Follow-up question, Brett. If I hire you and we do all the contracts, can I charge my children $1,600 per room? Because that seems like
that'd be great.
Great.
Yeah, I could just see London grabbing the credit card and being like, here's your rent.
Too soon, buddy. Yeah, that would be the way to do it. Okay, Brett, what else is going on in the rental market that you think people would be kind of interested to know about?
I think something that I always encourage residents when I'm speaking with them, or I have people, not to make light of the situation, people in tears in their eyes saying, I need a place now, and someone that was more qualified, I chose them. I didn't deny you, but I just went a different direction, is what I say frequently. And what I tell people is really work on your 4 different criteria as per fair housing: credit history, rental history, job history, and income. A lot of times, sometimes people I can't really change what my income is right now, but if they really are a great resident at their current property, and they really work on improving their credit, making sure high balance things are paid off, or making their monthly minimum payments, that really helps a long way when we're looking at these 4 criteria. I'll tell people, hey, even if I've rented to people that maybe have poor credit, or for instance, I've got a resident that unfortunately both these people are in marriage. They were both married prior. One of them had a nasty divorce, and so one of their prior spouse had really racked up a lot of credit card debt, ruined their credit in turn. And they showed me, evidence of all of that. And so I said, even though one of these criteria, your credit is poor, they had great X amount of reserves in the bank. So I was able to rent to them based off the other 3 criteria. I really gave that a higher
precedence.
Higher precedence. And then they've been great residents. So I think a lot of times focusing on those 4 main things to make yourself as attractive as a resident as possible to a potential landlord is a good way to bring yourself up in the rankings.
That's good to know.
Yeah,
we were just talking about that on the buyer side, is how do we help our buyers be attractive when it comes to writing offers.
Simple.
Kind of similar, similar.
Finding inventory for them.
Finding inventory for them.
Then affordability.
That's right.
Yeah. It's good, man. It's really good.
Yeah, Brett, thanks so much, man.
So 3 questions.
Do we have?
I'm thinking.
We already asked him the
legs back or bicep. What's your favorite exercise?
Okay,
he was literally
context.
Literally
Jeff.
just at
he was just at the gym. That's why
at Kennedy, and then he's like, "Oh crap, I got to get over for the podcast."
To be fair, that's my second day back in the gym because we had our second born child was born on in October, and I haven't been to the gym since then. So I'm not as great as I sound.
Tell us about your baby.
His name is Elliot Michael Bey, and Elliot is after my good friend Zach Elliott, and memory of him, and he's just the happiest little guy. And then his sister Lene just is obsessed with, almost too obsessed. Like she'll lay on him because she loves him so much.
So good. Dude.
But nothing. Cool. I always look at. I've said this. Jeff and I are part of a networking and business referral group together called Strategic Alliance. And I said this a few weeks ago, is that my worst day running my business is what my best day was working for somebody else.
So good. I love
it. I look at that is that even when I'm having difficult days dealing with unlawful detainer actions or people that aren't paying rent or paying bills on behalf of owners, the admin part is not my favorite a lot of times. It's all about the kids. So I'm so fortunate and blessed to have a business of my own because it allows me to do what I want to do, and that's spend time with my family and spend time with my community. And
so good.
Yeah, I'm very thankful to run my own business on the Central Coast.
So how do people get in touch with you, Brett, if they have more questions or want to look into hiring you?
Sure. So our website is Bey Property Solutions. Bey is spelled Bravo, Echo, Yankee, Bey. Where you can find us on Google. We've got 11 reviews now, so that's good.
Hey guys, go give them a review. Just for this, it doesn't have to be specifically a client of his. No, but it's education.
It really, the search engine optimization. If you type in Bey Property Solutions, I'm the first result now, which is just great.
That's awesome.
Oftentimes when people will call me, whether they're looking for a property to rent, or I've got some new owners that's like, I typed your name into Google and you popped up, and it's something that Google can make or break a business.
Yeah.
So BeyPropertySolutions.com, Bey Property Solutions on Instagram, and you can call us at 805-316-1659.
That's awesome, man.
24 hours a day because my phone's never off, unfortunately. Because I'm the on-call maintenance man.
Oh my gosh, you do it all.
I'm the receptionist.
But only call if you need maintenance at midnight, okay? Don't just call and say hi.
Yeah.
So.
All right, boys. Hey, thanks so much.
What a great interview.
Good talk.
Appreciate you both. Merry Christmas.
Hey, Merry Christmas, bro.